Paul Rudd has become one of the most iconic actors of the 21st century, but his entire career almost looked completely different because he almost missed out on several of his biggest roles and even walked away from Hollywood and comedy at one point, which was particularly surprising because his sense of humor is what he relied on as a child.
I think I learned early on that if I can make kids laugh, then I would be accepted more, or maybe liked more, or not beat up as much, or made fun of. It was always the way that I dealt with any kind of trauma in my life was joke. It still is, I mean, jokes.
But contrary to several movie stars, he wasn't a child star, or even a child actor for that matter.
I didn't realize that this was the kind of thing somebody might be able to do. You know, the idea of being an actor wasn't something that I really ever wrapped my brain around until I was maybe 16 or 17 and somebody had suggested it. I did gravitate towards comedians and comedy at a pretty young age.
So he instead took a more relatable approach with his introduction to acting and filmmaking.
You put the videotape in the side of it and then close it, and then I would just, hit the button to record. I would self-edit through the camera. Stop, start. And so I made movies with buddies of mine. I did it all through college, and I thought they were so funny. And then I watch them back, and it's like, these are terrible.
But then after years of trials and tribulations, he realized he had found his true passion in life. But his belief that he was capable of becoming a professional actor wouldn't have come true if it weren't for someone else in his life.
I remember my next door neighbor being in our house one day saying, have you ever thought, what do you want to do when you go to college? What do you want to do for a career when you get older? And I said, I'm not really sure. I liked drawing. I thought maybe I'd go into animation, actually. I like doing a lot of that. I figured that whatever I was going to do was not going to be something that was standard. I didn't really think too much about being an actor. I don't think. And he said, well, what about going into acting? He says, I have a son. He had him older than me. But he goes, he lives in New York, and he's an actor, and he's, a stage actor. And he goes, it just seems like all the little things that you do, it seems like something that might be interesting to you. And I don't know if it's revisionist history or just the way that I remember it thinking back now, because I've been asked this question before, but it seems to me that was a moment when I thought, yeah, maybe that is what I want to do.
And so he went off to the University of Kansas to study acting. Though, despite his early love for comedy, he planned to abandon the genre altogether.
I loved dramatic films and dramatic actors, and I thought, this is what you're supposed to do.
His college years were pretty all over the place, as he didn't just stick to Kansas, but also spent some time at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. With all this education and training, you'd think his first major audition would go a lot smoother than this.
Very first auditions to play kind of like this tough dude. I hadn't really been on an audition before, but I heard this story. Danny DeVito auditioned for the role of Louis De Palma in Taxi, that he went into the room with all the people and said, who wrote this? And it was garbage. He threw it down. He jumped on the table. He didn't really audition. He just was the guy. That's how you get a job. I went to this casting director's office and she goes, hello. I go, yeah. I felt so uncomfortable. I'm trying to be tough. And she said, so did you get the pages? Uh-huh. Okay. Well, start whenever you want. And I had a cigarette. I didn't light it. I didn't smoke either, but I had it as like a prop. And then in the scene, and then I threw it on the ground. And I stubbed it out into her carpet. Left, and I was driving back, and I thought, I'm not going to get that job. No agent, it's like my first agent. And I got back, and she called me, and she just said, what happened?
But thankfully for him, not long after this fiasco, he would end up making his major acting debut in this commercial for Nintendo.
Kind of flying, crashing feeling. When you decide to get serious, there's only one place to come. The games of Super Nintendo.
From there, he'd land a role on an NBC show called Sisters, and it really seemed like he was beginning his rise up the Hollywood ladder. That was until he made quite the baffling decision.
I was a recurring character. I was not contractually obligated to take to work on it if I had something else.
Sure.
The second season I was on, and I left because I went to Oxford to study Jacobean drama. And my agents were miffed, and they thought I was nuts. And now looking back, I realize, I see why they thought I was nuts.
A decision that he almost regretted immediately.
Went to Oxford for just a semester, studying Jacobean drama. I didn't feel like as if I belonged there at all.
So he made his return to Hollywood. and he had no idea what was waiting for him. It all started with a role in one of the most iconic horror franchises of all time.
My name's Paul Rudd, and I'm 5'10". Michael's work isn't done in Haddonfield, and soon, very soon. My name's Tommy. I was only 8 years old when I saw him, but I was one of the lucky ones. I survived.
The first Halloween came out when Paul was just 9 years old, so it had to be surreal to make his big screen debut in the franchise's 6th installment.
I think that Michael Myers is, I always found him to be much more frightening than the other ones, like Jason or anything, because I just thought that the plain white face, that mask, is just, there's something really creepy about it. I think when we do a scene and he would just walk, and even though I knew who the guy was that was playing him and everything else, there is something weird about that. Or when we would have to run down a hallway, we'd duck around a corner, and then we would have to just wait around the corner, and then we'd wait for Michael Myers to come walking around, and then he'd walk around the corner right towards us, and then he'd yell, "Cut." But to wait, and then all of a sudden he comes around, it's pretty weird.
I've seen the first two, all the reboots, and a few from the original franchise, but I actually watched this movie for the first time ever last night, and I sort of enjoyed it. It's probably just because I haven't watched a Freddy, Jason, or Michael Myers movie in almost a year, so it was pretty refreshing. My biggest complaint was that it didn't feel like there was enough Michael Myers in it. Paul, on the other hand, didn't enjoy it anywhere near as much.
Were you happy about that? Halloween 6?
No, I mean, it was ridiculous.
But he was off to bigger and better things, because he landed a role in the iconic film Clueless almost immediately afterwards. I know his filmography lists Clueless before Halloween 6, but he clarified in an interview that they actually filmed Halloween 6 first. But he almost got screwed big time with Clueless, because he almost missed out on the role over something super easily avoidable.
Barbershop, and I just went in, I said, just buzz my head, cut it all off. And then a week later, I went into a restaurant, and Amy Heckerling, who directed the movie, was eating there, and she looked at me, and
she was like, "Wait a minute."
She froze. She goes, "What did you do? What did you do to your hair?" I was like, "I just like shaved, cut it off." She
goes, like, "It's getting too long."
She goes, "You auditioned for this part. We were maybe gonna get this part, but you can't cut your." I was like, and I'm like, well, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be.
Things worked out in the end, though, and looking back, he had zero clue that Clueless would turn into the phenomenon that it did.
As I was kind of going, I thought, this is really smart, it's really funny, and we did a table read, and we were saying, we grew up with these John Hughes movies, like there was Pretty in Pink and Breakfast Club, and those movies were seminal to our generation. And it had been a while since we thought, there's a movie with a bunch of high school kids and stuff. Maybe this will be like that. Never really thinking that was going to be the case. And yet, here we are, 30 years later, and people still watch this movie.
But the biggest win of all from Clueless wasn't the success or impact it would have on his career, but it also led him to his wife.
You get to New York, you meet a girl, and that girl ends up being your wife.
Right.
Right?
Literally right when I got here, too.
First chick you meet. Boom.
She used to work for this PR firm, and I just joined this PR firm right after I did Clueless. It hadn't come out or anything, and so she was in the New York office, and so I came out here, and she was kind of overseeing everything. Yeah, I thought she was really cool, but I also didn't know anybody here. We started talking, and I remember thinking like, oh, God, this girl is so much cooler than any other girl that I know, and, she'd been through a lot in her life, and we had just started talking about real stuff. And I thought, I remember thinking like, she's like a woman and not just like a girl.
I just watched this movie for the first time ever as well, about 2 weeks ago. And I was really excited, especially given it was directed by Amy Heckerling, who also directed Fast Times at Ridgemont High. It was a little too over the top for me.
Hello, it was his 50th birthday. Whatever.
But I did enjoy Paul's performance very much, and definitely liked it more than I disliked it.
I don't speak Mexican.
I'm not a Mexican.
Great, what was that all about?
Lucy's from El Salvador.
So?
It's an entirely different country.
What does that matter?
You get upset if someone thinks you live below sunset.
I can't say I'm eager to rewatch it, but at the same time, it definitely has its unique voice, and I can see why it's loved so much. Just 1 year later, he'd booked the 1996 version of Romeo and Juliet, a movie we watched in 9th grade English. Definitely a fun one. This was the moment where he'd meet Leonardo DiCaprio for the first time.
At the time, my father made his living. He was a Titanic expert, and he used to take people all over the world talking about Titanic. It was my last day of filming Romeo and Juliet, and we all went out to a bar afterward, all the guys. So we were in different cars, and I was riding to the place with Leo, and he said, I just got offered this movie. It's a studio movie. It's Titanic. And I said, that's incredible. And I knew a lot about Titanic because my dad just talks about it. And we just had a conversation about it. He was saying, I don't know what I'll do. I remember saying, you should do it.
Shortly afterwards, he landed his first lead role ever in The Size of Watermelons, which I'm gonna be honest, this movie just wasn't for me.
Booze, for Christ's sake, the blood of leaders. What's your name, man?
Alex.
Alex, perfect. I can use a man named Alex on my team. You drink? Of course you drink. Why else would you dress like that? Listen, Alex, I don't know if you know much about global economics or the per capita consumption of macadamia nuts and pineapples. That's not important here, man.
He was still a ways away from becoming the Paul Rudd we all know. But I found his film Overnight Delivery in 1998 to be particularly interesting. For one, it has an insane cast. It's got Paul Rudd, Reese Witherspoon, Christine Taylor, Tobin Bell, aka Jigsaw from the Saw movies, and Sarah Silverman. But this was before all of them got big, and I just love finding little hidden gems like this. But secondly, it has an oddly similar plot to the 2000 movie Road Trip.
What the hell is that? Did you kill a cheetah?
Both center around a college student who regretfully sends a package to his girlfriend and must embark on a road trip across the country to intercept it in time. The movie was no road trip, but Paul definitely delivered, and I was especially impressed with early Reese Witherspoon. He'd also do a rom-com with Jennifer Aniston that same year, titled The Object of My Affection, which I'm not overly opinionated on, but it definitely helped further put him on the map with its moderate box office success. From there, he'd co-star with Dave Chappelle in 200 Cigarettes.
You wanna know how I succeed?
Not really, no.
I would tell you what I do. See, first of all, bro, you gotta smile. Like this here. Do that a lot. See, bitches love that kind of thing.
I didn't hate this movie, but I also found it to be incredibly frustrating. Because I have Paul Rudd on my Mount Rushmore of comedic actors, and I'd put Dave Chappelle as the second greatest stand-up comic of all time next to George Carlin, yet it felt like the director had zero clue how to use either of them. I only laughed twice throughout the whole movie, yet this could have been one of the funniest movies ever made considering the talent they had. It had a super kick-ass soundtrack though. Kool and the Gang, the Commodores, Blondie, the Cars, Queen, Dire Straits, and the Ramones. I wouldn't be shocked if they spent over half of their $6 million budget on the soundtrack. But Paul at least got to meet one of his idols on set.
My favorite moment was probably when Elvis Costello walks through the scene that Courtney and I are doing, and it wasn't really so much a moment, it was just really the day of filming, and I got to meet him, and he's one of my heroes, so that was kind of exciting for me.
He played a supporting role in The Cider House Rules that same year, which is a solid film, no doubt, but it didn't necessarily shoot him up the ranks. Though the next year gave him probably the most bizarre role of his career when he starred in Gen Y Cops.
I'm an all-Asian martial arts film. How I got this job, I have no idea, because I couldn't be more miscast.
Was the film successful? I mean,
I have no idea. No. I really don't know. In fact, I've actually never even seen it.
Probably not a big budget production.
I think in Hong Kong terms it was, because it's shot in Hong Kong. I was the only American. Duran Duran made a video about the FBI. I looked like Simon Le Bon.
But the following year would be particularly huge for him. Even if it wasn't immediate, Wet Hot American Summer would be a pivotal moment for him, because that's where he'd meet future frequent collaborators David Wain and Ken Marino.
Sort of knew him through Zach Orth. Zach Orth had been in the Baz Luhrmann Romeo and Juliet with Paul. Zach invited him to see this weird little play that me and Michael Showalter and Joe Luchilio wrote called Sex, aka Wieners and Boobs. He came and was just like, oh my God, whatever you guys, your shtick is right up my alley. We basically at the time were trying to figure out how to get Wet Hot American Summer put together, but he was enough of a name for us to say there would be value added to our project if you would be part of it. And then I didn't really get to know him until he came to set.
Even if he wasn't a movie star yet, he still had enough experience and work to be a full-time actor. But it was also early enough in his career to enjoy the insane indie nature of this movie.
You know, we all slept at the camp. It rained every day. So whoever wasn't filming had to go into town, which was about 30 minutes away, and buy beers. We didn't have computers, no one had cell phones really. It was just it. So everyone was just there. And also, if you weren't working,
You went and watched other people filming their scenes. So there was a real kind of camaraderie and a feeling like a collective. And it was like being at summer camp.
And he definitely had the time of his life making it.
We worked very little.
Yeah. And then we would all just hang out.
Drink beer
Craig
every
Wedren play
night.
guitar. They have guitars and play music really loud, really late.
The film, like a lot of Paul's work, is a bit out there for me. But at the same time, I do respect it and enjoy it enough. It's also the movie that Paul credits for jump-starting his career.
Because of that movie, in the comedy world, people saw it and liked it.
Almost immediately afterwards, he'd reunite with Jennifer Aniston and book a role on Friends, which was actually never supposed to be a recurring role.
I was only ever supposed to do, I think, 2 episodes.
And they liked you on it, so they wrote you in more.
It was really nearing the end of the show.
Right.
I think it went 10 seasons, and I came in on the 9th season.
Funny enough, he actually thought he blew this role early on and was going to get fired.
It was the first or second episode, and she had a segue because I think it was a brand new thing, and she was zipping around the
Having fun
soundstage.
on the set.
Yeah, and her foot had been injured. I think she had a broken foot. Not that she needed a segue to get around, but she was kind of using this thing, and so Matt LeBlanc wanted to try it,
right.
and I said, "Oh, can I try?" I'd never been.
Let's have
on
some
one.
fun.
Yeah,
yeah.
And she was holding it as I was standing on it and saying, "Okay, just be careful because finding your center of gravity is a challenge." And I was like, "Okay, all right." And then she let go, and I started to lean back and I turned the thing instead of going straight, and it just ran over her foot. There were a group of people, including writers and producers. They looked completely freaked out. She said, "I'm okay. I'm okay. And then she
Meanwhile,
sat
is she like wincing and like?
Oh, she was in pain.
He was rising up the ranks, but his big moment was still a couple of years away. He did a few art films in the meantime, notably 2 Days, which I found to be quite bizarre. The premise is a guy making a documentary about his decision to take his own life, but it's also supposed to be funny. It's not impossible to make a premise like this comedic, but it's also a massive uphill battle, and I don't think they stuck the landing. Though I will concede, it had several unexpected twists and turns, and I genuinely cared about the character by the end of it, so there's that. But then came 2004, and Paul's life would never be the same. Paul would finally be given his first massive comedic opportunity with the movie Anchorman, a role he potentially got thanks to an accidentally formed friendship with Judd Apatow.
One time I was at a dinner, I was talking about fake names and how it's so difficult to come up with a perfect, funny fake name. And I said a great example is Gurn Blanston, which was from an early Steve Martin routine. And someone at the dinner said, "Gurn Blanston, oh, that explains Judd Apatow's email address." I went home and emailed Judd. I'd never met him.
No way.
And I said, "Hey, man, nice reference on your email address." He emailed me back and said, "Oh, I'm glad you've emailed me. It's nice to connect with you. Now I know who to hit up if I ever need tickets to a new Neil LaBute play." We became kind of pen pals. And it wasn't until Anchorman that I actually met him in person.
Wow, that's crazy.
Wow.
And when I went into audition, he was there, and it was a little bit like, meeting your pen pal. That it's like, oh my God, wow, I can't believe there you are. I can touch you.
Paul understood the magnitude of the role and wanted it unlike any other role he had ever auditioned for.
It was a while before I was cast in it. I think I had a few months, and I was just on the phone every few days with my agents going, "Have you heard anything? Have you heard anything?" Which is not normally the way that I am, but I was with that.
And when he finally landed it, he cherished every moment and viewed it as a dream come true to work with the cast.
I was hoping to just not embarrass myself in front of like those kind of powerhouses. People say, "Well, God, a lot of people hadn't seen Steve Carell before that, or they hadn't seen Dave Koechner. They'd seen Will." But as you know, you're in the comedy world. I knew exactly who those guys were.
You're probably walking into the job on Anchorman thinking, how am I going to do this?
Yeah,
in terms of admiring everyone's work.
Though his time on set wasn't without some awkwardness.
There was one time where I ran into an elevator and I was kind of sweaty.
And you have the full mustache,
The full
obviously.
mustache and the mutton chops. My hair was humid, so it was looking really curly. I was also wearing a T-shirt that said "Mustache rides 25 cents." There was an elderly couple in the elevator. It took me a second to realize that they were really
creeped out by the combination.
Sure, yeah.
And,
what a horrible man you are, yeah.
And I realized it halfway through, so I just kind of sat and stared at him.
But he really had the time of his life on the set, despite not knowing how it would land with audiences.
It's like I remember thinking that even when I read the script, I thought, oh my God, this is the funniest thing ever. I knew when we were filming things, certain things were hilarious. Now, how it all plays together, how it's going to work out in the finished product, how it'll get edited, you never really know.
It certainly landed, though. It grossed a healthy profit theatrically, on DVD, and of course it was constantly rerun on cable. This was definitely one of the 5 most rewatched movies of my childhood. It's a movie I definitely enjoyed back then, and still enjoy today. And it's actually going to be the movie that I make a video about next week. Paul, of course, is a huge reason to thank for it becoming so legendary.
Made with bits of real panther, so you know it's good.
It's quite pungent.
Oh, yeah.
It's a formidable scent. It stings the nostrils. In a good way.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm going to be honest with you. That smells like pure gasoline.
They've done studies, you know. 60% of the time, it works every time.
It wasn't all glitz and glamour for Paul, though, as it was around this time that he learned of the facade of late-night TV.
As a kid, I would watch Letterman and I'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. Friends coming over and sitting on the couch. It was later on I realized, oh, they're promoting something, like they're selling. There's a machine going on, and some of that commercialism, as I started to do that and knowing that part of the job has become selling things.
Alas, he looks back on the experience of Anchorman with nothing but awe and the utmost gratitude.
So kind of major for all of us. I mean, it was such an important part of our lives, I think, professionally and personally. I mean, it was a really great experience. Yeah. First one thinking, I can't believe a studio is giving us money to make this movie, because it is so different than anything else that's being made, and it seemed to be kind of so simpatico with my own kind of thought of what is funny, and I think we all felt that. And so when we were working on it, you know, separate from thinking, will this be successful or not, I think we all felt, well, we think this is funny, and that was just such a thrill to work on something and have that kind of feeling.
And that relationship with Apatow really paid off huge dividends, as they'd become super frequent collaborators, including the following year with The 40-Year-Old Virgin. Anchorman was heavily improvised, but it was nothing in comparison to this movie.
Judd would say, all right, do more of that. Go back and say that. He'll yell out lines and we'll be in the middle of the scene and we'll just repeat what he says. Or maybe another writer will say something, and they become these kind of collaborative jam sessions, really. And when something really cooks, like when it's really, when it's working, you can tell. And it's thrilling because nobody, including us, like knows exactly what it is we're gonna say or what's gonna happen or where it's gonna go, to hopefully find a few moments here and there.
This is the kind of improv that Rudd really thrives on. He's an outstanding actor as it is, but when you allow him to write his own dialogue, he completely takes over the movie, just like he did with this one.
I gotta tell you something, I'm really excited about it. I woke up, I came to the store, and I feel confident to say to you that if you don't take this Michael McDonald DVD that you've been playing for 2 years straight off, I'm going to kill everyone in the store and put a bullet in my brain.
There's some really great stuff in here.
Hey, did you ever see School of Rock?
Yeah.
Well, this is, it's called School of, you know.
Oh.
Dude, here it is. Boner Jams 03. It's a mixtape I made. Everybody loves Raymond. That's probably not supposed to be. This is a good show. I just tape it sometimes.
Despite the 40-Year-Old Virgin's staggering success, grossing nearly $200 million off of a $26 million budget, it'd still be a few years before Rudd would become an A-lister. In the meantime, he'd reunite with Ken Marino and David Wain for a little movie called Diggers, which I really dug. The movie has a super cool retro look and vibe to it. My overarching thought throughout the movie was that it felt like what you'd get if a Cameron Crowe and Richard Linklater film had a baby. It was my favorite all-time performance by Ken Marino, and while I'd call it a light drama, not a laugh-out-loud comedy, Rudd definitely held his own.
This is the Mick Jagger. That's the flavor, the flash, the bite. This is the soul, the foundation from which we build. It's the Keith Richards.
Stones fan, are you?
Never heard of him.
Then again, I noticed even if I don't like a movie, which I definitely really did like Diggers, but if I don't like a movie that Paul Rudd's in, he's still just always great. During this time, he'd also play small roles in Night at the Museum, Reno 911 Miami, The X, Walk Hard, and Forgetting Sarah Marshall, while reuniting with Amy Heckerling for I Could Never Be Your Woman, another movie that the soundtrack really helped. Reuniting with David Wain for The 10, which was just too much for me. And lastly, reuniting with Judd Apatow for Knocked Up, which I thought he was by far the best part of.
These are all the sex offenders in our neighborhood.
Looks like your computer has chicken pox.
You shouldn't take it so lightly.
I don't take it lightly. You know, I'm not gonna go over to any of these people's houses and say, hey, can you babysit?
But at the end of the stretch, he'd finally star in a movie that officially launched him into A-list status. And that movie was Role Models.
Dude, I just spent the afternoon in Middle-earth with Gleek Glop and the Floopty-Doos, all right? Give me a fucking break.
The movie was actually never supposed to be a comedy.
It had first started as a drama. It was a story between one guy and one kid, and then this kid's sister. Another writer turned it into a comedy and made it about two guys and two kids.
But after several rewrites, the studio stopped asking Rudd for feedback, and then just straight up asked him to rewrite the movie.
So the new draft came in, and it was getting farther away from what was actually kind of working in the read-through draft. We were talking about things that worked and didn't work. I made some suggestions, and she asked me if I wanted to write it. And I said, yeah. I was shocked, because I'd never been hired by a studio to write a movie.
Which was great, because Paul Rudd made it personal and made it his.
And so I kind of was able to put things that I don't like in life that I feel are worthy of being mocked. I have a real personal gripe with sizes of, I refuse to order based on their bogus, pretentious marketing ploy.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with small, medium, and large.
Large black coffee.
Do you mean a venti?
No, I mean a large.
He means a venti, yeah, the biggest one you got. Venti is large.
No, venti is 20. Large is large. In fact, tall is large, and grande is Spanish for large. Venti's the only one that doesn't mean large. It's also the only one that's Italian. Congratulations, you're stupid in 3 languages.
Given Rudd's inexperience as a writer, not everything landed how he had hoped it would when they made it to set, meaning they had to rewrite the script. But there was a massive issue. At this time, the WGA was on strike, meaning they couldn't hire Hollywood writers to rewrite this movie, and instead relied on the cast and director David Wain.
Coming up with new pages and rewriting stuff like right before the scene, and as the cameras were rolling, oh, throw that in and say that.
You're excited to graduate, get into the, be done with school, get in the real world. Guess what?
Hey, you guys excited to graduate?
But as we've seen, Paul is at his best when he's given free rein to improvise. And boy, did he and Sean William Scott get the opportunity to do a lot of that. So the strike ultimately ended up being a blessing in disguise.
Hey, nice cow outfit, huh? Where can I pick one of those up? The gay zoo?
Oh no, it's not a cow. It's a minotaur. It's a creature of myth. And he got this one out of your mom's closet.
She let me keep it after I f***ed her.
We go to prison, you're never gonna get Beth back. She's banging her boss, I guarantee it. Really, she's gonna be banging Patricia Feingold.
Let me give you a little motto I live my life by. You gotta hit it and quit it. Bang, bang, bang the drum.
What? That's not a motto, that's just you saying a bunch of things.
The movie ended up making a modest profit, and I don't know why the f*** it took so long, but the word was finally out that Rudd was a comedic force to be reckoned with, and he was about to take over the genre. It was also around this time that he got to host SNL for the first time.
Total adrenaline, and it was so crazy. I remember feeling so exhausted when we finished the dress rehearsal, and then I thought, oh my God, I have to do this again. It was also really weird for me because the first time I hosted was, I think, 2 weeks or so, almost 3 weeks after my father had died. So I was in this state of grieving,
mourning,
but I was also kind of half there. But I was so excited to host SNL. I remember when it finished, I thought, how do these people do this every week? The whole thing was wild. I had a great time, but it was such an emotional experience.
The epic run of films post-Role Models started with I Love You Man and Dinner for Schmucks, 2 movies that I'm pretty indifferent on. Then there was How Do You Know, which gave him the opportunity to work with 2 legends, James L. Brooks from The Simpsons, and debatably the most celebrated actor of all time, Jack Nicholson, for his final movie role ever. Like several of his roles, Paul almost never got this one either.
I went to meet him here in New York. I went to his apartment. Right. I had a fever though. I had about 101 degree temperature. I probably shouldn't have gone out of the house, really.
Right.
And I auditioned and it was horrible.
It was horrible.
And I was able to talk him into letting me do it again a couple of weeks later.
And so you sold him on it the second time around?
Apparently so.
But he did. And he'll never forget what it was like to meet Jack Nicholson for the first time.
Jack Nicholson played my father in a movie, and I had never met him, never seen him. I couldn't believe that I was going to meet him, see him in person. And we had to rehearse, and I was sitting in this chair, and the thing is that in the script, we play this father and son, and we always kiss each other. And I was nervous, I'm gonna meet him, and all of a sudden a car pulls up, I'm like, Jack Nicholson is here, I'm gonna meet him in a second. And he came into the room, and he walked over to me, and he grabbed me, kiss on the lips. Here we go.
Working with Jack had to have been one of the most insightful experiences of his career.
The amount of work he put into it, I'd never met the man, and I just figured, boy, if anybody can just show up and do something, it's gonna be Jack Nicholson. It's the opposite in that he put so much into it. I was blown away of how good he is. He's a persona, like he can easily slip into that kind of Jack persona. I saw him do 20 takes in a row, and I saw how different each one was. All the choices that he was making and how each one was valid and each one was riveting and at different levels, and it was mind-blowing.
It's a solid film overall, and yet again, Paul Rudd proved his comedic chops.
I'm not good today. Maybe I should just tell you what's going on. You know what? I never talk about myself. I should just do it. No!
This also helped him host SNL for the second time, which was way bigger than the first because he got to meet his favorite musician of all time.
Phone rang at about 1 a.m, and it was Bill Hader, your musical guest is Paul McCartney.
Wow.
And I didn't go back to sleep. I'm going to be in the same room with Paul McCartney. When I think back of all the times I've hosted that show, certain things kind of pop out. So I was getting pictures taken, and it was about 11 or 12, and Paul McCartney and his band come in, and they go through. They played Jet. It was and they said, well, we're not taking pictures. So then I went down and watched him. And then they brought in a grand piano on the floor, not even on the stage, because he was trying to figure out what he might play next. I looked at his feet on the pedals, and I was looking at his fingers pressing the keys, and I'm watching over Paul McCartney's shoulder him sing Long and Winding Road.
You're watching Mozart.
You're watching Mozart.
Right.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. What a rare treat, right?
Oh my God. It really is. At the end of a life, when I look back, I'm going to say, God damn, I got to see Paul McCartney play Long and Winding Road for like 10 people.
And just like that, it was like he was starring in everything. He'd do Our Idiot Brother, Wanderlust, and Perks of Being a Wallflower, all in the next 2-year stretch. Along with one more movie, which is my all-time favorite Paul Rudd movie, and a top 5 comedy of all time for me. I know this is a massive hot take, as most people seem to be pretty lukewarm on the movie, but I just absolutely fucking love This Is 40. It's even one of the posters on my wall. You just can't see it behind me because the poster's so big and there just wasn't enough room. But I really got my wish with this one. The entire time I was watching Knocked Up, I kept wanting Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann to replace Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl, and they did just that with this movie, and it didn't disappoint.
We should do it easy and simple. No more dairy, no more wheat, no more sugar. She can have vegetables and fruits.
So, she can eat fruits?
Fruits, yeah.
Any kind of fruit?
Mangoes, pineapple.
It isn't like there's safe fruits and then there's unsafe fruits.
No.
What about French fries?
I found the preparation for this movie to be particularly interesting, as Paul's family in the movie was actually just director Judd Apatow's family in real life, leading to quite the pre-production.
I remember before we did This Is 40, he's like, come on over and just hang out at the house and see what our life is like.
Uh-huh.
And like, I remember like going with him, like putting the girls to bed.
Hell, Apatow even made Paul look like him.
Judd wanted me to gain weight because I'm eating cupcakes. He said, "You grow your hair out." And I realized, like, and the way the way I was dressed in the movie, and I think it was kind of later. I'm like, oh, you're even dressing me and making me look like you.
And just like how Jack Nicholson was special to work with, Paul didn't take the experience of working with Albert Brooks lightly at all.
Before he was cast, Judd was saying, I think I want to go to Albert Brooks for your dad. I was elated. I couldn't believe it. And then when he said yes, then I remember rehearsing with him for the first time, and then Judd would take those improvisations and things from it and then maybe put them back into the script. But it felt a little bit in that room like jamming with the Beatles.
I really found it interesting that they didn't prioritize humor at all with this movie.
The idea was to really not go for jokes necessarily or try and make this a broad comedy, but something that would strike a chord with people who might be in this phase of their life. Throughout the entire shoot, I was really excited about doing scenes that might be uncomfortable.
Yet it ended up being laugh out loud hilarious, probably thanks to all the improv. I could go on about this movie for another half hour, and I probably will when I finally get the chance to make a video about it. But in the meantime, I'll say if you've never seen it or you don't really remember it, you need to give it a shot. It's an absolute masterclass on how to make a dramedy. This was still just the beginning though, because things were about to ramp up even more for him. Because the following year, he'd do 5 movies. He was acting in so many films at this point that he couldn't even keep track of them.
By the way, so many movies at this point that you
I don't even know.
Isn't that great that you don't remember the name of a movie
I
you were
actually
in?
had a thing where I was, I think one time, flipping around and all of a sudden I was on TV and I said, what the hell is this? I'm in this?
There was Admission with Tina Fey and Lily Tomlin, which was directed by American Pie director Paul Weitz. And boy, was I excited to watch it for all those reasons. But boy, was I let down. This movie just felt like a series of plot points and plot devices, was completely soulless, and the jokes were awkward at best.
Woof!
Excuse me?
Oh, you just patted me on the head like a dog.
Then there was Prince Avalanche, which I found to be visually striking, but a complete waste of Paul's talents, given how there were regular stretches of this film with 0 dialogue. Though I'm at least impressed that Paul learned how to communicate telepathically for the role.
I was a pilot. I'm just looking for the pilot's license with the logbook.
Was the pilot's license a piece of paper?
Yeah.
But he at least did one movie this year that I loved, and that was Anchorman 2. I loved seeing the band get back together. And it's a damn shame that Adam McKay had to do Will Ferrell so dirty, because I'd really love to see a 3rd installment. It was at least cool to get insights directly from Paul on what the comedy sets were like during this era.
All right, we're gonna film it. We have a script. We're gonna film a scene as it's kind of written, but then we're just gonna start making things up and kind of use the script or this scene as a blueprint. And then it's like working on a scene and it's like Will Ferrell or Carell, like they're so funny and you just don't know what's gonna happen. It's actually so similar to sports where it's like you guys are working as a team, right? And it's reactions like, this is not how this is drawn up, but I know what you're gonna do, I know what you're gonna do, I know what, and it's like we're in the zone and this is fun. That's the way it feels on those. As a result, they were the most fun, probably the most creatively fulfilling.
Not long after, he'd get the opportunity to see his Kansas City Royals win the World Series.
I'm gonna be partying at my mom's house. Hey, party at my mom's, man. She's out of town. I got a keg. It's gonna be sweet. All right, party at Paul Rudd's mom's house tonight, Royals fans.
Which anyone who follows sports knows just how cool this is. I know I've been fortunate enough to see Michigan win a national championship in both football and basketball in the past 2.5 years. And fingers are really crossed for the Lions this year. But the momentum just continued for his career, as he'd now transcend into the MCU as Ant-Man. As much as I dislike what Marvel temporarily did to cinema, I can't hate on the guy for getting paid. And who knew that Edgar Wright, the director of Baby Driver, Shaun of the Dead, and Hot Fuzz, was originally supposed to direct this movie?
It was Edgar that offered me that part. I really didn't know that much about Marvel. I mean, I had seen some of the films, and I had read some of the comics when I was a kid. I knew what they were, but it was never anything that I would have imagined getting involved with. But it was Edgar that offered, and said like, do you want to play this? And I love Edgar, and he was a friend of mine, and I loved his films. And so I was very excited. And then he wound up leaving the movie. It was a bit of a chaotic scene there for a little bit.
I also didn't know this, but he didn't just star in the movie. He also co-wrote it with the director of Anchorman.
Adam McKay came in, and then he and I were talking. We were talking about what we could kind of do with the movie. And then they hired us to write it, the two of us. So,
cool.
So Adam and I kind of holed up in a hotel room for a couple months and then just really tried to cruise through that.
The movie absolutely crushed it at the box office, bringing in over $500 million, but it also made his job as a parent a lot more complicated.
My whole thing, I think, as any parent, you just, no matter what you do, you just don't want, whatever your actions are, whatever your job, whatever you just don't want your kids to get fucked up in some way.
Yeah.
I mean, we just want to protect our children. My relationship with my kids is very much as a dad,
yeah,
and they look at me as their dad.
But would you bring them to the set
They've been
of a Marvel movie where you're doing Ant-Man?
Yeah, they came to the set of.
Is this good or bad, do you think?
I think it's okay, assuming, my wife and I are really instilling what this is a job.
It also wasn't a one-off, as he became fully integrated into the blockbusters. He's since starred in 2 more Ant-Mans, Captain America Civil War, The Avengers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and Ghostbusters. I do admire that he hasn't become a sellout and still finds time for smaller movies like Friendship and Death of a Unicorn, even if I dislike both. Though he did a recent small dramedy titled Power Ballad, which I thought was pretty solid, especially the back half of the movie, which I found to be incredible. If you're interested in taking a chance on a super low budget but 2000 style comedy, you can check out my directorial debut for free on Tubi. I'd really love to see him do more straight comedies again, though. We got a taste of it this past winter with Anaconda, which wasn't the greatest comedy ever made, but was no doubt a step in the right direction. With theatrical comedies making a comeback, we'll know they're officially back when we see Rudd in roles adjacent to the characters he played in the likes of Role Models, This Is 40, and The 40-Year-Old Virgin. I was also incredibly disappointed to see that Judd Apatow didn't cast him in his upcoming comedy, but I'll remain optimistic that he'll make a return. The right script just needs to find him. By the way, we've got just 2 more weekends to go for filming the feature that I'm currently directing. I would say it's really coming together well, and here are some behind-the-scenes photos, maybe even a video or 2. I definitely felt a bit off when recording this video. I'm not gonna lie, my brain is super fucking fried because there's just so much going on in my life at this point. I hope it wasn't expressed too much in the video, but we'll also know comedy is back when we see the Owen Wilson and adjacent roles to the likes of Zoolander and Wedding Crashers. As much fun as Paul Rudd's journey was, it's nowhere near as interesting as Owen's. Because Owen's career was a complete accident. Because if it weren't for a student film and a last-second casting decision, we never would have heard of him. But that's just where it starts, though. And I take you on this incredible journey here.